Being at sea, in one way or another, is an experience I've had quite often during the long search, but never so utterly as when I was trying to find something out about Chinese life and Chinese religion. On no other journey have all my Western assumptions been so radically challenged. A quarter of the world's population is Chinese, 900 million in communist China, and the rest scattered over Southeast Asia and beyond. Our search took us to an island, Taiwan, non-communist. It used to be called Formosa, the beautiful island. Population 17 million, its capital Taipei. When you try and find out about Chinese religion, people will say that Chinese are Confucians, Taoists and Buddhists. And, here's the hiccup, they may be all three at once. Right at the start, it was my luck, the Chinese might say it was my destiny, to meet and be adopted by three good companions. They worked together on a magazine. What's going to happen? What's going to happen to the next issue?
The next issue won't get put out.
How are we going to manage as far as the language goes? My Chinese is non-existent.
Well, I speak English, of course. He speaks Taiwanese and Mandarin, and he speaks Hakka and Mandarin. So between the three of us, we'll manage.
Everybody speaks Mandarin,
yes.
More or less. Because you speak English so well, do you feel as though you're not entirely Chinese?
No, I'm very much Chinese.
Linda Wu was a Fulbright scholar and studied in England and America. She's the editor. Do you speak no English at all?
A little.
A little? Enough?
Enough.
Huang Yung-sung, Old Huang, is the art director. Yao Mingjia, we called him Baby Yao, is the associate art director. Why does he sleep so much?
He's always tired.
Always tired?
What? I need it.
You need it. Oh, great.
You know, growing...
Their magazine is in English and is called Echo, Echo of Things Chinese. The first thing you notice when you come into their office is the emblem on the wall, the familiar Chinese yin and yang. How should I look at this?
Well, in the beginning there was nothing, there was chaos. All right, and then in the midst of chaos, the yin and the yang developed. All right, and then from the yin and yang, the four directions, and from the four directions, the 8 trigrams.
So I've got to get that straight. Chaos, first of all,
yes,
represented by the black. Then that emerges into this sort of balance, doesn't
right,
it?
The yin and the yang.
The Chinese, in talking about the origin of things, don't speak of creation or a creator god. For them, it seems, there is what you might call undifferentiated potential. Linda calls it chaos, emerging into two complementary principles, the yin and the yang.
Day and night.
Day and night. Okay, that's the beginning. That is.
Man and woman.
Yeah.
Birth and death.
Birth and death.
And
and 4 seasons.
and the seasons, summer, winter.
Summer, winter, yeah.
That's just a simple way of beginning. Very good, yeah. Well, I've got to start somewhere, so I may as well start there. The great shock to the system for anyone in our tradition is to learn that for the Chinese, good and evil are not opposites in the sense of yin and yang. You don't say yin is good, yang is bad, or vice versa. If you must use the words, a balance of yin and yang is good, imbalance is evil. 2,500 years ago, the sage Confucius wrote these words: "Is there anything more excellent in the world than to celebrate the festival of the god of earth and the springtime?" Our first outing was to a village called Meinung, on the birthday of the local earth god, the Tudigung. The idea was to start with the gods of the people and leave the philosophy for later. The earth god's shrine was under a tree, on a hill, by a river.
Well, most earth god temples are under a tree.
Oh, it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a nice little sort of altar. And it's a bit like a grave shape.
Yeah.
Do they always do that? The crackers?
Yes. Well, they always do this for as part of the celebrations for the god's birthday.
Do you have a lot of heart attacks?
No. I just get very scared.
Tudigung, is it 3 words?
Yes, it is.
What do they mean?
Well, Tudi itself means earth, and Gong means God.
No, I haven't got
That's
that.
how we refer
Sorry.
to Tudi means earth.
Earth, I see.
Right.
And Gong is
Gong is a
Earth.
respectful term that we call God.
earth god. Is he a very important deity?
Well, the Chinese, in Chinese folk tradition, all the gods organize in sort of a hierarchy, and he's in the hierarchy is equivalent to the human bureaucracy in Imperial China.
Well, you mean that the gods are parallel somehow
Right.
to the bureaucracy of real magistrates and kings?
Magistrates,
and
right.
all that.
So that and on the top you would have the Jade Emperor, which would be the supernatural counterpart of the emperor. And the Tudigong would be on the bottom, whereby he would be the counterpart of a village chieftain, let's say. Because he's really the god of a locality.
Oh, I see. So he's very much your local man. I mean, he
Yes.
doesn't do for the next village.
No.
He just does for this village.
He's the official of this village.
Ah, and what sort of problems do you bring him?
Well, he sort of acts as a police in a sense that he polices the area for ghosts who are really, in a sense, equivalents of beggars and bandits. And then he also looks after the welfare of the community, agriculture, whether there are many births, weddings, deaths and things, so that people come and report these things to him.
So you mean that like an ordinary policeman might be responsible for, say, rushing somebody to hospital,
Yes.
or driving off a beggar, or catching a thief.
Mm-hmm.
Tutikung in some way does this with non-human
Right.
agencies.
On the non-human level, the supernatural
Oh,
level.
I see. There's another thing I discovered. If the Tudigung doesn't do his job properly, someone, say the mayor of the town, can dismiss him and appoint another. There seems to be no question of the gods telling the human beings what to do. It's the human beings telling the gods what to do.
Well, there's obligations on both sides. Let's say the human beings will make offerings or will worship the god as long as he's efficacious.
But there's none of that business of worshipping a god for a long time who doesn't bring you actual presents.
Oh, no.
You give him presents, he gives you presents.
Right. And you worship him as long as he's efficacious. As long as he works. And as long as he does his part.
It was significant, I think, that the first bit of what you'd call religion I encountered had nothing to do with any form of Chinese almighty. It was a local matter, the equivalent of a policeman on the beat. In the words of a scholar I met, no one has yet managed to convince the Chinese people that China is anything but a big idea. The living unit, as they see it, is the village, the community, the family. And a great deal of their effort, because they're practical people, goes into keeping the small group harmonious. This shop deals in traditional Chinese medicine, Western medicine exists alongside, but hasn't ousted it. The patient, you could say, is in some state of imbalance. The balance of yin and yang in the cure will restore the balance of yin and yang in the body. I think we in the West define religion in a particular way. There has to be a God. He has to be the one God. Worshipping the one God means religion. But when I've asked in Taiwan about Chinese religion, I've often been steered towards people doing quite simple domestic things. Placing an incense stick in a pot, paying respects to an elder, balancing the flavors in cooking, siting a grave or a house harmoniously, choosing the right moment to start off on a journey, clearing a space, handling objects, bowing. Perhaps it's a matter of definitions. Perhaps we define religion in a way that makes us unable to see it in China. In a town not far from Tainan, the old capital of Taiwan, they're building a vast new extension to an old temple. Work started in 1970. It's planned to take 12 years, and the cost will be around £750,000. Now surely, I thought, this will be either Confucian or Taoist or Buddhist. Not at all. There's a presiding local god in this particular temple, but he hasn't jealously displaced all the other gods.
Right.
Who pays for all this?
The community does. The whole community. In fact, a temple is always rebuilt about 70 or 80 years. And so that if the god's doing his job, then the community will be very prosperous, and they'll have money left over to build the temple.
Oh, I see. So if you see a rich temple going up, you know that that community is saying we've earned enough to plow it back and to thank the God who gave us the money.
Right. And the people are more than willing to pay, you know, to contribute to the building of a new temple. Because it's sort of their token of their appreciation. And it's also to ensure the God's protection in the future.
Is there any feeling here that if you've got a good old temple, you jolly well keep it because it's old?
No. It's like a human being. If your house is, you've lived in it for 20, 30 years, and it's about time you want, you want a new house. You want a bigger house than that.
So the God's moving up in the world in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I suddenly thought, passing through that temple, about the great European cathedrals and how they were built. There, too, there must have been rows of apprentices working to the master sculptor, the master painter, and the master mason. That's a television set.
Yes, it is.
What's it been?
Oh, well, the television was donated by one of the faithfuls for the god.
So that he can watch television?
So that he could watch television, right. You know, most operas are performed for the gods.
Oh, really?
The stage is always directly in front of the shrine.
You mean that all the opera, like the Taiwan opera, for instance, is always performed for the gods primarily? Mm-hmm. So modern entertainment, too, should be provided for the gods? Mm-hmm. Do they ever turn it on?
Yes, when the programs are on. But of course, human beings can also watch.
That's amazing. These are the gods of longevity, prosperity, and posterity, embodying the great Chinese aspirations to live a long time, to make enough money, and to have children. In case your impulse, like mine, is to go on asking, is this Buddhist? Is it Taoist? Let me give you the answer I often got. It's a community temple. Buddhist deities, local deities, Taoist deities are all lodged in one place. What's happening here, in a back room of the temple, is a kind of séance. The father of a family has recently died. That in itself tears a hole in the community. Now there's some further disturbance, and his family has come to seek the dead man's advice. The chairholders go into trance. The medium, who has already made his interior journey to another world, becomes the spokesman for a powerful god. The master of ceremonies notes what he says and waits for the dead man to speak. When the moment is ripe, the dead man, to whom offerings have been made, and who sits there in a paper effigy, makes himself felt. The priest interprets the characters traced on the tabletop. The dead man asks for the family to join together in a series of offerings. Harmony can be restored. The medium unplugs himself by leaping in the air. The more commonplace method of seeking guidance is by presenting yourself at the shrine of a god and throwing these oracle blocks. At its simplest, you ask a question, and the throw of the blocks gives a yes or no answer. You could see it as just abandoning yourself to chance. Or is it a way of acknowledging the existence of more than meets the eye and laying yourself open to it? If I'd been walking round these temples by myself, I don't think I could have made the connection between the god statues, the TV sets, the seances, and the needs of a living Chinese community. But Linda bows to her gods, throws her blocks, and at the same time, by being who she is, she somehow demonstrates, if it doesn't sound too grand, a sense of the holy, another way of experiencing reality that seems to mark what we call religion wherever it's found. The majority of the popular gods I saw in Chinese temples had once been people. This was a notion quite new to me, and something it took time to grasp. Any sensible Chinese, it appears, will hope for long life, enough money, and pious descendants. No one wants to be a god. But there are calamities, suicides, girls die unmarried, and it's somewhere in the disappointment of these lives that it's said you find God material. After death, disturbances happen. Disturbances spread. It's like a haunting. And an ancient Chinese way to settle and deal with a dangerous, unfulfilled spirit is to start a cult for it, make it a god, so that the negative and frustrated forces loose in the air can be balanced by the positive forces of piety and worship. This is the temple of Ma Tzu in Tainan. Busloads of pilgrims come here daily, sometimes carrying their local Ma Tzu statues for what seems like a spiritual recharge. Ma Tzu was a fisherman's daughter, a virgin of great gifts and piety, who did miracles, died young, and during 4 centuries was promoted, till in the 17th century the emperor raised her to the rank of Queen of Heaven. This is her palace. While we were walking among the pilgrims, Linda showed me a series of wall paintings which tell of a legendary meeting of opposites well over 2,000 years ago. This is Kung Fu Tzu, Master Kung, whom we know in the West as Confucius. And this is Lao Tzu, the old man, the sage whom the Taoists revere. It's almost like Yang meeting Yin. They lived through a time of upheaval, and each offered his answer to chaos. From Confucius, the way of the Yang, firm government, law and order, respect for authority. From Lao Tzu, the way of the Yin, the natural way, the water's way, yielding, absorbing, and a leaning to something called actionless action. But I'd come to Taiwan with the idea of 3 religions, Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. Where does Buddhism fit in? Not, I was told, on this axis of yin and yang. China, from what I can gather, was hospitable to missionary Buddhism, but its primal balance was never affected. What's the story behind this one?
Oh, that's a Taoist, a Buddhist monk, and a Confucian scholar.
Yeah.
And the 3 were really good friends. And they had spent a really enjoyable afternoon together. And then when it came time for the 2 to leave, the host insisted on accompanying them a bit of a way. But they had such an enjoyable discussion. I mean, had such an interesting discussion, they forgot everything else. And so that when they suddenly realized that they were almost to the other's home, that they burst out in laughter.
Ah, I see. And that's the moment they catch.
Right.
That's lovely.
And the story is usually used to show the harmony between Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism.
You can argue, come from different angles, but be friends.
Right.
It's a good lesson. And what is Confucianism? I imagine if it derives from Confucius, from the Yang principle, from ideas of firm government, it must have something to do with law and order. We went to the countryside for Qingming, the spring festival, the festival of sweeping the ancestors' graves. Here, said Linda, far away from the courts and the cabinets, you'll see some basic Confucianism in action. It seems the Confucian remedy for the ills of society was to alert the human family, the whole of it, to its obligations, subject to ruler, son to father, living family to dead ancestors.
You're saying it's important that everybody in the family, as far as possible, turns up at the grave sites on Qingming. Why does it matter to have them all there?
Because it's sort of a renewal of their kinship with the dead. So that it's the living renewing their kinship with the past.
I see.
So that the line succeeds down through time.
So that in a curious way, anybody, dying, can expect at least once a year there will be an absolutely total family gathering.
Yes.
At their tomb, to pay respect. It doesn't seem to me to be a depressing affair. I mean, there's quite a lot of fireworks and merriment.
It's a very cheerful thing.
Does it have any other significance than merely remembering the dead?
No, it's the renewal of life. Because Qingming itself is held, 106 days after the winter solstice. And that itself, the day itself, is the beginning of spring, the reawakening of the earth to summer, to the warmth, to the sun. And therefore it's the beginning of life again. And therefore it's the first outing also. And when you're thinking of living, when you're thinking of new life and everything, you also think of death also. And so you remember your dead.
Is this connected with the feeling that at the height of yin, you yang is born.
Right.
You think of yang.
Right.
So at the height of maybe a death, you think of a renewal.
Or when at the height of life, you think of death. You remember your dead.
Right. And then yes, I get you. And presumably in the dead of winter, there's a feeling that if the dead of winter is yin, like a sort of death, at that moment the germination is happening, which will then become the yang of summer.
Right. So that the Chinese always worry about the ills of winter on the summer solstice, at the height of summer. But they also rejoice of the rebirth of things at the winter solstice, which is the height of yin.
Once obligations to the ancestors have been met, community celebration can take over. In the afternoon, there's to be an opera performance in the village. A deputation of officials goes to the tree shrine of the Tudigong, the earth god, to invite him to attend. The Tudigong, rather like a Confucian official in former days, is reckoned to be under the canopy. In a way, it seems quaint to see a celestial policeman being taken to a musical afternoon. But I got a strong feeling of something quite else going on. A community saying, in their own way, till you're right with the earth, nothing can prosper, and there's nothing to celebrate. A mile up the road, they're constructing a motorway. There's great pressure in Taiwan to expand the economy. The young ride motorbikes. They don't learn to play old instruments. I wonder how long this wise, gentle ritual can last. The truck had done its rounds, and all the local earth gods had assembled and been shown to their seats. If you think of theatre-going and cinema-going as the endless pursuit of novelty, it will seem odd that each performance of traditional Chinese opera starts with the same sort of overture. The gods on stage salute the gods. First to appear, the god of prosperity. Then the god of longevity. Now all three, prosperity, longevity, and posterity. The dialogue which follows recalls how an earthly father and a heavenly mother had a child which here they offer to the community. The child is art. The search for Taoism was difficult from the start, as the word itself, Taoism, covers a number of things. The popular religion we've looked at is loosely labelled Taoist. There's Taoist philosophy, And then there's something like a Taoist church, an organization with priests and a liturgy, worshipping their own special trinity. This was a church Taoist funeral. Acolytes set up a heavenly mountain of embroidered altar cloths. A Taoist priest doesn't have a parish or a parish church. When you hire him, you hire his vestments, his men, his musicians, and his expertise. This is the funeral of a grandmother. It spreads over 49 days. Tomorrow she'll be buried. Because of the enormous expense of the funeral, over £20,000 in this case, the ritual has to do for 4 or 5 less eminent deaths in this extensive clan, and well over 100 people will need to chip in. After death, the grandmother is expected to live in a style she certainly couldn't afford in life. This is her new mansion, lovingly molded in paper. After the funeral, it will be burnt. The ritual secrets a Taoist priest knows, he generally learns from his father, and he hands them on to his son. It's not thought necessary for anyone not in the family to show signs of grief. That's the work of the close relatives, the mourners. Invite all the neighbours and everybody. Can anybody come? Yeah.
And everybody who...
Yeah. Have you got names on or
Yes.
The wreaths have arrived, but the crowds are expected tomorrow for the burial. Today's rituals are for the close family and, more especially, for the welfare of the dead. A death, they told me, creates disharmony. It's seen as a breach in nature, and the purpose of Taoist ritual is to heal that breach. All that I was going to see, they said, I should see in that light. At this moment in the funeral drama, the soul is waiting in limbo, in need of a writ of pardon, so that it can better itself in the afterlife. The priest, as a celestial bureaucrat, has obtained this release, and the journey that's about to unfold is the ritual dispatch of a horseman, carrying the dead woman's pardon down to the lords of hell. The cockerel stands for the forces of yang, the life forces. The duck stands for the forces of yin, the death forces. Having taken part in the ritual, the birds are never slaughtered. They die a natural death. The cow horn is used to call up the spirits and drive out diseases. On the altar, the priest has concocted a medicine, an elixir of immortality, and it's given to the effigies of the dead. What's happening here is bound to excite anybody with an instinct for drama. By that I mean anybody who knows that simple props and simple action can tell enormous stories. The priest is the intermediary between the underworld and heaven, and his movements trace out cosmic journeys. As the ceremony unfolds, the acolytes shed their ritual vestments and become acrobats. The priest masterminds the descent to hell. He distributes the pardon, the paper horse, the rider, the dragon, the phoenix, all the elements for an epic rescue. The descent to hell is a series of somersaults down from an altar. At one stage earlier, the priest reminded me of a conjurer, then a dispensing chemist. Now he became a ringmaster. Flanked by the phoenix and the dragon, a yin bird and a yang beast, the envoy receives his commission. He'll need money for food, for lodging, for slipping to difficult doormen, and it's spread around his feet, a special sacrificial currency valid for this sort of journey. On his back is the writ of pardon, which the exiled soul is waiting for. The funeral cortege next day had the air of a carnival. Two rival bands and an extraordinary group of traditional performers called the Enticers. But beneath the decoration there were some few essentials. The burial time had to be astrologically right. The burial place had to harmonize with the landscape. Or, in the language appropriate to these ancient sciences, dragons lie curled in the earth, and the buildings and graves of men should not bother them. All right, that was a Taoist ritual, but what is the Tao? In Western spelling, it's T-A-O, though it's pronounced Tao. I've seen it translated as the order of nature, the mother of the universe, the inexhaustible, the origin, the way, or probably better, left as it is, the Tao. The first words of Lao Tzu's classic, Tao Te Ching, The Way and Its Power, go like this. The way that can be talked about is not the absolute way. Or, to try again, anything you can say about the Tao can't be the Tao. It's a mind trap. I got some desperately needed help about the Tao, which I somehow felt to be the source to which the search was leading, not from a sage up a mountain, but in the middle of Taipei. Early every morning in the park, people do Tai Chi exercises. As the Tai Chi master began his exercise, Linda guided me. In the beginning is the Tao. The Tao gives rise to a field of possibilities. Linda called it a state of chaos. Out of the chaos comes the first movement, the birth of the Yang, balanced by a complementary settling, the birth of the Yin. Everything in the universe is a balance of yin and yang and emanates from the Tao. A single human being can mirror and even enact the movement of the universe. A thought behind this exercise seems to be that attention to this movement of yin and yang can lead beyond differences and back to the source. Taoists speak of becoming immortal, slipping the shackles of time. The name of the great sage Lao Tzu means literally old man. It can also mean old baby. One of the hardest ideas I found to grasp is summed up in the words Wu Wei, actionless action. It doesn't mean idleness, making no effort, but something rather more like going with the grain of things, respecting their nature, respecting your own. It doesn't mean don't climb a mountain. It means if you want to climb a mountain, do so by all means, but do it the natural way. There are Taoist developments in the West. City dwellers take to the country. There's a new dignity in handicrafts, a respect for the grain in the wood, rocks on shelves instead of vases, a wish to work with the earth, but not to wound it. Sayings like, those who know don't speak, those who speak don't know, fall from the lips of people who have no idea that they're quoting the Taoist sage Lao Tzu. How could this have happened, since, as far as I know, Taoists have never sent out missionaries? Is it that there are about 40 English translations of Lao Tzu's classic Tao Te Ching? Is it that Taoism laid its eggs in Chinese Buddhism and was carried first to Japan as Zen and then to the United States and Europe, where it hatched? Or is Taoism another name for a natural and universal wisdom that will always make itself felt when societies become too mechanical, too exploitive, too cut off from their roots?